I am very happy to take part in this inaugural program of online teaching of Sanskrit language under the banner of Sri Ramakrishna Veda Pathashala, which was inaugurated by our most revered Swami Gautamanandaji Maharaj, Vice President Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission, Belur Mutt, Kolkata, on 21st June 2019. This was a desire of my Pujya Guru, Brahmalina Srimad Swami Purushottamanandaji. Swamiji had instructed me to start one Sanskrit institute in Tumkur and Sri Ramakrishna Veda Pathashala also. His blessings got materialized last year when Sri Ramakrishna Veda Pathashala and Sri Ramakrishna Samskrita Adhyayana Kendra was inaugurated under the guidance of Ramakrishna Vivekananda Ashrama. And I feel very proud to say that most respected my spiritual sister Srimati Prema Hegde and most respected Sri Ananta Hegde ji, the couple are the backbone of this Veda Pathashala. They were blessed by most revered Swami Gautamanandaji Maharaj, and they started the classes in Tumkur Ashram. It was a great surprise for me to see more than 55 to 60 students regularly attending the classes after the institute got inaugurated. As we all know, Corona has become a universal problem, and even conduction of the classes became very tough. It was almost stopped. Later on, we determined to have our Sanskrit classes online. That suggestion was given to me by Sister Prema Hegde, and accordingly, today we have come together virtually, and let us thank the software and the technological knowledge for helping us to carry on the classes online. My dear friends, before I say a few important aspects about the grandeur of Sanskrit, let us go back to the pages of history. What India was, why this holy land was called as Bharat. What was the greatness of our civilization? Even without waging a war against any country in the history, how could India become Jagat Guru for thousands of years? These are the things each and every Indian child is expected to know about. Very unfortunately, this is out of syllabus in our education system. It is needless to say that the invaders of our country, people from Middle East, people from European countries, they really ruined the cultural and religious backbone of our country. I can quote you half a dozen of foreign writers, very reputed, renowned writers, universally accepted that what the invaders did negatively with respect to Indian culture and civilization. Let us recall what Swami Vivekananda said about the British education system that was prevailing in India during his time. Swamiji says, the British education system is merely and entirely a negative education system. It has turned out Indians to be the next door neighbors to brutes. Swamiji says, the British education system has taught our children that his father is a fool. His teacher is a lunatic. All his scriptures are useless things. All bundle of lies. This is the word Vivekananda has used. By the time the child completes 16 years of age, he will become a useless flesh, a bundle of flesh, just criticizing his own motherland, the aspects of his motherland, ignoring, belittling, talking all nonsense about the history of his own motherland. Observing this, Swami Vivekananda very clearly cautioned Indians with these words. I have traveled far and wide in my country, in all the provinces, including the central province, but I have not come across a single self-made man in India. If at all, if you find a single self-made man, mind you, he had his education elsewhere and not in India. Keeping this pathetic condition of the education system that was prevailing in those days, Swamiji says, give light to poor and more light to rich. Give light to uneducated and more light to educated. When we study these words thoroughly, we can easily recognize the very, very weak education system that was offered to Indians during the foreign administration. Very unfortunately, even after our independence, for the first 6 decades, the same type of education was continued. Our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru did not have much exposure to Indian way of life. He had education outside. He was born with a silver spoon. And at any point of his administration as Prime Minister for more than 16 years, he did not seriously give quite a good amount of interest to how to redefine India to Indians. Very unfortunately, yes, I do appreciate Jawaharlal Nehru for his policy of industrialization, the way he wanted to build the banks and all, the public sector, so on and so forth. But with regard to developing a genuine type of education system in his country, I very sincerely feel Nehru could not do what was really expected. That was continued even by his daughter Indira Gandhi. And almost the first 6 decades after independence, we have seen more or less the same Macaulay system of education got continued. Very unfortunately, the universities could give graduate certificate to our children, and our children, our youngsters became intellectually refugees in their own country. If you ask any boy or a girl who is 16 plus, they say, I want to pursue my education in science. I shall get into engineering or medical education system. Soon after the completion of my degree, as early as possible, I want to get out of my country. If you immediately ask them, why are you in a hurry to get out of the country? The immediate answer you could listen from our children was, and of course even today is, my country is not good. I cannot prosper here. See, this is the pathetic condition which is truly the result of the very, very weak education system what we have introduced to our children after independence. My second responsibility today is to tell you about the grandeur of India, what it was earlier. The Indian ancient universities had attracted people from more than 20 countries. Almost half of the world, many of the Eastern countries and Middle East countries, we had students who wanted to pursue their education in Indian universities of those days. The advent of the Middle East, the invaders, they really destroyed not only the physical structure of our universities, but also all the great literature books pertaining to Vedopanishad, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita were burnt into ashes. This speaks about their diseased mindset. Soon after the advent of the Europeans to our country, the first thing what they did was, when we go through the letter of Macaulay, you come to know very clearly that unless and until we damage the cultural backbone of India, we will not be successful in ruling the country. Few years back, Max Muller's 175th birthday was celebrated in many of the countries. And in Belur Math, in Kolkata, Ramakrishna Institute of Foreign Languages, they conducted an international convention. Many of the renowned Sanskrit professors and professors of philosophy, Indology, were invited to speak on the occasion. Institute of World Culture, Calcutta, organized this international event. One of the very renowned speakers from Europe, he made a very clear mention of two important aspects. Every Indian must know this. The first one was, in 1857, Indians, they went against the British rule, and this war is termed as the First War of Independence, and the British called it a Sepoy Mutiny, but it is clearly the First War of Independence. Max Muller made it very clear that the negligence of Sanskrit by the British, their attitude of belittling Sanskrit learning, their rude attitude of stopping government funds to run the Gurukula system of education in India were most prominent reasons for Indians to go against the British administration. See, such a salient reason our textbooks of today will not reveal it out. As we know, Bala Gangadhara Tilak was a good friend of Max Muller. And when Bala Gangadhara Tilak was imprisoned, Max Muller wrote a letter to the Director General of British administration, who was looking after Indian affairs, that such a philosopher, such a learned person should not be punished. He is an honorable man. These are the words of Max Muller in his letter that was addressed to the Governor General of those days. So, respecting the words of Max Muller, Bala Gangadhara Tilak was released from jail. You just imagine a personage of his stature, Max Muller. Yes, we do have the mixed different opinion about Max Muller. In the beginning, Max Muller was a very fanatic Catholic. And his intention was to see, as much as possible, he wanted to support the process of conversion. But later on, after he studied Sanskrit, after he studied Vedas, he changed his attitude, and finally he became an ardent disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And when Swami Vivekananda met Max Muller in London, in Oxford, I had been to Max Muller's house. Now that house has been given to a college to run the education there, or to run an educational institute there. Myself and Swami Nirbhayanandaji had been to Oxford upon invitation. In the Center for Hindu Studies, the director of which is Dr. Timothy Kirnan, who said 52 students are pursuing PhD on the subject of Hinduism, but very unfortunately, not a single Indian is a student pursuing PhD studies in Hinduism. We went there in 2018, April. We were accompanied by Swami Sarvasthanandaji Maharaj, our Vedanta Center, London. He heads that institute. You just imagine 52 children from different countries of the world are pursuing their PhD in the subject of Hinduism, but unfortunately not a single Indian student is in that group of 52. These are, the facts what I presented before you. I had been in Europe, I was in America. We were invited thrice by Turin University in Italy. Dr. Alberto Pellicero, a very renowned Sanskrit professor of Italian Turin University, he conducted 3 lectures of Nirbhayanandaji, and I was a part of the program. And he released my CD containing the composition of Shankaracharya in Sanskrit that was titled as Bhagavat Pada Bhakti Sudha. That was released in Turin University in 2006. Professor Pellicero, many a times he used to question us, Swamiji, why India has neglected Sanskrit studies? Even after independence, why your children are not encouraged to pursue Sanskrit? I was in Genova University. One professor by name Professor Bruno Barb, who heads the Indology department, he also asked the same question. Why Indian children are discouraged in the matter of studying Sanskrit. Nirbhayanandaji and myself, we met a very renowned, experienced, old-aged professor, Professor Piano. When we had our conversation with him, what an amount of knowledge he had about Sanskrit. It was a big surprise for us. Very big surprise for us. See, that is the condition that is prevailing in the foreign universities. But in India, so-called intellectuals, in the name of secularism, today, in Indian context, secularism has reduced to an extent of avoiding all Hindu practices and encouraging rest of the practices of people belonging to different religions. Secular in Indian view today is to boycott Indian traditional practices, Indian religious and spiritual practices. Even chanting the mantra of Saraswati was not entertained in schools. Even the idol of Saraswati that was consecrated at the entrance of many of the universities in India, in later course, the students and intellectuals, so-called intellectuals of the university, started neglecting that and talking all nonsense about that. See, today, the fate of Indian universities, it has gone to worse. It has become worse. Fortunately, Rajarshi Narendra Bhai Modi ji, after becoming the Prime Minister, he is slowly trying his might to make Indians to know India in the right perspective. I must say, we have to redefine India to Indians today. That's why recently we have welcomed the new national educational policy. I was fortunate to speak on that subject. That was organized by our IGNOU and Saurabha Institute of Management, Bangalore, a month back. I was introduced by Information and Publicity Department, Government of India, Dr. Purnima from Mysore, who heads that institute in Karnataka, invited me to speak on the subject Atmanirbhara Bharat. I enjoyed that. Thousands and thousands of people have welcomed our Prime Minister's view and they have appreciated my talk on the subject of Atmanirbhar Bharat and new education policy. Yes, ours is a country which was known for knowledge and wisdom. Bharat means a land of knowledge, and knowledge, not knowledge alone, it is a land of wisdom. Let us look into the utterances of some renowned people the world history has recorded. And when I was introduced by my beloved sister Prema Hegde in the beginning of the session, I think she has forgotten that I was fortunate enough to get an invitation from Sanskrit University of Karnataka to deliver the convocation address in Sanskrit University on the occasion of 7th convocation address of Sanskrit University. I value the doctorate that was given to me by Tumkur University, which was headed by Dr. S.C. Sharma, a great educationalist of the country today. At the same time, I value an opportunity of giving convocation address more than all other awards that were offered to me in all these years. I want to quote Mark Twain. Mark Twain, an American historian, says, India is the cradle of human race, the mother of history, grandmother of legends, and great grandmother of traditions. These are the words of a world renowned historian, Mark Twain. This speaks volumes because he says India is the mother of history, grandmother of legends, and great grandmother of traditions. I want to quote Arnold Toynbee, another great historian who was born in 1888. At these supremely dangerous moments in human history, the only way of salvation is the ancient Hindu way of life. Here, we have the attitude and spirit that can make it possible for the human to grow together into a single family. These are the words of Arnold Toynbee. He says, at this supremely dangerous moment in the human history. When he said this, the world had already observed 2 world wars. At that supremely dangerous moment in the human history, he made it very clear that Hindu way of life alone can bring the whole world under one umbrella of peace and harmony, and we can live like a single universal family. What we have observed as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in Bhagavad Gita message. The next utterance of another great thinker goes like this. Even among the highest cultures of the world, the Indian wedding system stands out. It requires as much concentration that is required to develop a nuclear power plant, but costs more. In simple, I shall define this. In Indian Hindu way of family life, the parents will give so much of attention to conduct the marriage of their daughter or a son, and this amount of concentration can be equated to a group of scientists working for at least a decade to develop a nuclear plant. In fact, Arnold Toynbee continues to say that the nuclear plant may be a failure, but the Indian parents doesn't want to see their matrimonial arrangements for their children, their family life getting disturbed. They don't want to see that. They want to see that marriage is life, in contradiction to marriage is convenience, as West has observed. Swami Vivekananda, in one of his lectures on the subject contribution of India, he has mentioned beautifully what India could contribute to the world at large. India has given to antiquity the earliest scientific physicians, and according to Sir William Hunter, she has even contributed to modern medical science by discovery of various chemicals and by teaching you how to reform misshapen ears and noses. Even more, it has done in mathematics for algebra, geometry, astronomy, and the triumph of modern science, mixed mathematics, were all invented in India. Just as much as the 10 numerals, the very cornerstone of all present civilization, were discovered in India, and next part is very important, and are in reality Sanskrit words. This speaks volumes. The world has recognized the reason behind India as a unified country for several millenniums. The strongest cause, the reason for that is our Sanskrit language. Dr. Rahul Peter Das, a professor in Philadelphia University, says studying Sanskrit will help students to understand mathematics better. Even Max Muller went to an extent of declaring that Sanskrit is the language of languages. Sir William Jones, a very renowned personality in the world history, he says, Sanskrit language, whatever be its antiquity, is of a wonderful structure, more perfect than Greek, more copious than Latin, and more exquisitely refined than either. These are the words of a Westerner, the man who was renowned, highly respected in the whole Western globe in those days. He says, Sanskrit is more perfect than Greek, more copious than Latin. People, the intellectuals in our Indian universities, they say Greek and Latin are the ancient and most powerful languages. But this man, the Westerner, the philosopher, he is telling that Sanskrit is more perfect than Greek, more copious than Latin. What Mohanadasa Karamchand Gandhi says about Sanskrit, quite interesting it is. If I had acquired the little Sanskrit that I learned then, I should have found it difficult to take any interest in our sacred books. In fact, I deeply regret that I was not able to acquire a more thorough knowledge of the language, because I have since realized that every Hindu boy and girl should possess sound Sanskrit learning. Sanskrit is the only language that has a secular policy. This is a great lesson for the intellectuals of my society today. What all nonsense they talk. They say Sanskrit is a language only for the higher class people of this society. No. Gayatri Mantram was the greatest offering of a non-Brahmin Vishwamitra. The word Brahmin, defined by the Hindu scriptures differs from these pseudo-intellectuals. Sanskrit is the only language that has a secular policy. See Bhagavad Gita, it has a great global exposure. It is considered as a global literature and global message. It is recorded that more than 6,000 commentaries are there on Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita does not say to worship one God. It is not so with respect to any other religion. India's secular nature is because of Sanskrit culture, which is the very culture of our land. Dr. Rajendra Prasad says, our past president, Sanskrit literature is still able to keep its head high and to rank as first among the literatures of the world. Before I conclude, I want to quote the words of Nehru. Sanskrit is a language amazingly rich, efflorescent, full of luxuriant growth of all kinds, and yet precise and strictly keeping within the framework of grammar which Panini laid down 2,600 years ago. It spreads out, added to its richness, became fuller and more ornate, but always it struck to its original roots. See, these are the utterances of renowned people who have recorded their names in world history. Time is not too late. Our country today must encourage our children to study Sanskrit from primary school itself. Swami Vivekananda, during his wandering days, before going to America, he made it very clear that we must learn Sanskrit and science together, not just from the point of examination, but we must thoroughly study these two aspects in a research attitude. Sanskrit has recorded all the grandeur and gaiety of this country, and this history contains the history of at least a few thousand years. If at all, if any Indian child wants to know much about his motherland, it is only through Sanskrit you can understand India better. Even the latest computer inventions, the beautiful advancement of computer languages have revealed out that Sanskrit is the only most perfect language that suits the software world today. So these are all reality. The whole world has accepted this. Germany has more than half a dozen Sanskrit universities to its credit. When myself and Nirbhayanandaji were extended a lecture tour in European countries, In Italy, in Spain, even in France, people used to demand, Swami, you speak either in our local language. If you don't know that, you please speak in Sanskrit. In Italy, they used to say, Swami, if you know Italian, you speak in Italy. Otherwise, you speak in Sanskrit. We will try to understand. But don't speak in English. My dear friends, it may be a surprise for you that majority of the European countries, they hate English language because they suffered a lot in the clutches of the British. If you move in the airports even today in Paris, even in Austria, when I was going for a walk, I missed the address. I asked one gentleman, can you please direct me to this address? Then immediately he said, no English. This is the condition. Even in Spain, people say, you speak either Spanish, if it is not possible for you, you speak in Sanskrit. Don't speak in English. So much of hatredness has developed against the British, against their language, because of their inhuman attitude in human history. My dear friends, we are fortunate that these Ashwini Devatas, Sister Prema Hegde and Shri Ananta Hegde, have come forward to lend their good services to ashram for running this Shri Ramakrishna Samskrita Pathashala. And we have one Shri Ramakrishna Veda Pathashala being guided by Vedamurti Brahmashri Shri B.B. Krishnamurti, a very old devotee of our ashram. He is teaching our children the Veda chanting and all. And I am very fortunate to have this Sanskrit class also. And we have quite a good number of students interested in learning Sanskrit. Yes, even these online classes will help our children to continue to pursue their Sanskrit learning further. And I thank Sister Prema for extending me an invitation to be a part of this first online class today, to say a few words. And definitely, ashram will try its best. Let us strive hard to see that more and more children in Tumkur will get into the atmosphere of this Sanskrit learning scenario. And I'm very happy to know that 2 students from United States of America, a student from United Kingdom, from London I mean, 2-3 students from North India, especially from Delhi, 1 student from Pune, have registered their names as students of this Ramakrishna Samskrita Pathashala. Day is not too far. We will have more and more number of children who are really interested in learning Sanskrit language. I pray Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna to shower his choicest blessings on all the Chhatras, the students of this class, to learn Sanskrit in the most successful way. And I wish them all a great success. I offer these words at the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. And once again, my special thanks to the couple, Sister Prema Hegde and Shri Ananta Hegde, for their wonderful services to our ashram in this matter of teaching Sanskrit to our interested students and devotees of the ashrama. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.